have happened to so many of us that it's enough to make you want to feel faint. It's enough to make you want to feel weary and just throw up your hands sometimes. Because let's face it, this race gets tough. It gets hard. And we get discouraged at times. God understands that. But he said, consider him. Look what he put up with. Look what he did. And because he did that, so can you. You have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as unto children, saying, my son, despise not the discipline or the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when you are rebuked of him. Man, I tell you, when you get a whipping from God, you will remember it. And you just want to fall apart when that happens. But the reason he gives you those things is to make you stronger, to make you smarter, so you won't do the stupid things you just did. Amen. Why do we spank our own children? To keep them alive. To keep them from getting into things that's going to kill them. To keep them out of the jail if we can. To get them to where they can finish school and they can focus and they can learn. Let me tell you something. They always advertise them frosted mini wheats or something, that 8 layers of fiber that'll keep you focused. The only thing I know that keeps me focused on is the bathroom. No, you need a little more discipline to keep you focused. And sometimes a parent has to correct you. And sometimes they have to give you a whooping so you can focus even on your schoolwork. Sometimes there's kids that would do good in school if they just got a good whipping. Oh, that's so archaic, I know. And God sometimes will have to give us a whipping to keep us focused on the path that is set before us, because we're looking over here and we're looking over there and we're wandering up here and we're wandering up there. And so sometimes he has to give us a whipping to get us back on track. So don't fall apart when he does that. He does it because he loves you. It said, for whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and he scourgeth or whippeth every son whom he receives. Everybody gets a whipping from God from time to time. Why? Because we are not perfect. We are wretched. We are sinful. And even after we get saved, we want to rebel and we want to struggle. And so sometimes he has to to get us back in line. And it said, if you endure this discipline, God deals with you as sons. And what son is he whom the Father corrects not? For if you have never, I'm going to paraphrase, this is the Dave's Bible right here. Listen to this. It says, for if you are without a whipping, whereof all are partakers, then are you illegitimate children and not sons. If you have never had a whipping from God, you are not his. There's nobody in here so perfect that God don't have to do things to correct you. Furthermore, we've had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them respect. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they, for just a few days, chastened us after their own pleasure, but he does it for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. And so while people are watching you, people are reading you, people are looking at you, and you claim that you know God, if that is true, he is going to correct you and straighten you out, so when people read you, they will be reading the right thing. Now, no chastening is, at present, seems to be joyous. Anybody in here enjoyed getting a whipping? Well, we'll have a counseling session for you this week if that's true. But it's grievous, and nevertheless afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. And so if you're going through a period right now where you feel faint, you feel weary, you feel like falling away because maybe God has brought some chastening into your life, he says to lift up the hands which hang down and the feeble knees, and quit looking so pitiful. Make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, let it rather be healed. The reason that these things go on in your life is people are looking at you. People are trying to see if they can find something in you that's worth living for. People are looking at you to see if they can find Jesus in you, because you've been claiming to know him all along, and you start veering off the path. And so God has chastened you and put you back in there, because he don't want people to go to hell reading you. That's why we have chastening of the Lord. It's not all about you. It is about other people who need to find Jesus. It's all about souls. That's what God has always been about from the beginning, is souls. That's why Jesus came and died, because of souls. Not so you could just have a big time all your life. It was the big time's coming when you get to heaven. That's when the big time's coming, when you get up there. And until that time, there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of straight walking to do, and people are reading you. And so when the bad things come along, sometimes God is purifying you and getting you ready, because somebody is going to look at you and go, where is Jesus at? That's the reason that he corrects us. He says to follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man will see the Lord. Whose holiness do you have to have in order to see the Lord? Yours? Mine? Isaiah said all the holiness that we could scrape together looks like filthy rags to God. Your life needs to be covered by the blood of Jesus Christ and his holiness, to when God looks upon you, that is what he sees. Look it diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. Then he said, don't sell out what God has given you. Don't trade what God has given you for a temporary break. He said, lest there be any fornicator or a profane person like Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. Esau came in his house one day from hunting, and he was very, very hungry. And his brother was making soup. And he said, give me a bowl of soup unless I starve to death. And his brother Jacob said, I'll trade it, one bowl of soup, for your inheritance. And he did. And he lost his inheritance. Let me tell you something, folks. We get in a bind sometimes. We want relief from the situation that we're in sometimes, and the devil will come along and say, I'll fix it for you for just a little bit here if you will trade your inheritance with me. Give me your future. Give me everything that God had promised you. Let me have your life, and I'll fix it for just a little while. He'll give you a high for a little while. He'll give you some pleasure for a little while. He might even give you a little bit of money for a little while. But you've traded in your birthright. You've traded in your future. And it said, for you know how that afterward, when Esau would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he looked for it with tears. Don't let the devil fool you into veering off the path and taking a shortcut, because that shortcut does not lead to heaven. It takes you straight to hell. And let me tell you something, the devil's shortcut is nice and smooth, nice and level, nice and flat, and it's plenty wide, and you can ride down that thing on anything you want to. It doesn't matter to him, long as you just take that broad way down to hell. But the path that God has put you on, it is rocky, it is narrow, and it is steep at times, but when you are done, you'll never get over what you're going to see there at the end of that path. It is absolutely amazing what God has planned for us. And so don't let the devil sell you a shortcut. He said, for you're not coming to the mountain that might be touched and that burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest. At the sound of the trumpet and the voice of words which voice they had heard entreated that the word should not be spoken to them anymore, for they could not endure that which was commanded, and if so much as a beast touched the mountain, it would be stoned or thrust through with a dart. He says in verse 22, but you have come to Mount Zion and unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. That's what your path is leading to. Your path is leading to heaven. It's leading to an eternity in the presence of God. And you are running this race however you can run it. Some of us are running a little faster than others. Some of us are almost there. Some of us are just getting started. But guess what? There is a crowd of people at the end watching you, and they are rooting for you. The writer of Hebrews has the idea of a stadium. And you know what a stadium is? It's a circle where all these people are watching you, and they're looking down from the seats up there, and they're watching how you perform. They're watching how you run that race, and they are actually rooting for you and cheering for you while you are running that race. And there's a number of different people that's watching. First of all, you think you're by yourself. While you're down here on this earth running, you said, nobody knows me, nobody sees me, nobody cares, and God has got these things for me to do, and I'm all alone. No, you're not. It says there is an innumerable, that you cannot count, company of angels watching you. I always have this story that I tell when I mention that if you could buy a pair of spiritual eyeglasses, that it's kind of like those 3D glasses, that if you could put them on and it would show you what is going on in the spirit realm, even in this building right now, it would be standing room only with angels. And they are watching you, and they are strengthening you, and they are rooting you on. A lot of times when you are suddenly saved from some terrible catastrophe, that's an angel doing that. When things happen that keep you from falling, that's an angel doing that. And just because you can't see them doesn't mean they are not there. They are there. And it said it's so many of them that you can't count. And they are rooting you on, and they are watching you. And they're not only up there in heaven, but they are down here. And they're walking the aisles of this church, and they're in your car, and they're with you at home. And they are watching. When you die, they even carry you up to heaven. You don't have to ever be alone. Innumerable company of angels. And to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, all of the early saints that came along, the ones that started the church from thousands of years ago, they're already up there. They finished their race. And let me tell you something, their race was a whole lot tougher than ours. Oh man, we fold up when the cell phone don't work. We panic and the whole world is entering when my battery died. Candy calls that a first world problem. Let me tell you something, man, these people were hunted down by Roman soldiers. They had to hide in caves to have church. And if they were ever caught out in public, they'd be killed instantly. And Nero used them as human torches to light the streets of Rome when he caught a Christian out somewhere. So I don't think we've got a really tough path to follow like we think we do. They're up there and they're watching and they're saying, I did it and you can do it. And to God, the judge of all, God the Father is up there, and He is, what does the Bible say? God before you, who can be against you? And He is up there rooting you on. And the spirits of just men made perfect. You know who that is? That's all of your loved ones that died before you did, and they are up there now, and they are watching. Can you hear them? Can't you just hear some of your loved ones that have gone on saying, don't worry, it ain't but a few more days left, and you'll be up here with me. That's like this one man said, if Jesus don't come to get us all, He's coming to get me pretty soon anyway. And it's not going to be long before he takes the entire church out. Whether you go feet first or head first, it don't make no difference. If you know Jesus, you will be in his presence when you leave this earth. And those that have already left are up there right now, and they're cheering you on and telling you to be patient, don't give up. It's only going to be a short while, and we're here, we're waiting for you. That'll be worth, the reunion alone will be worth running that race. The reunion alone of seeing those people again. I've got people in my family that serve God that I never got to meet. It was not until a good many years that I had a picture of my mom's dad. He died about 40 years old of pneumonia. And so she was just a little girl when he passed, but he was a preacher. And they have a picture of him with the suit on, and he looks very unhappy to be wearing that suit. And I said, why is that? She said, because he dressed like you do. He hated to dress up, and it was rare to ever see him wearing a suit. He pastored the House of Prayer over in Lynchburg. I'll get to see him. I'll get to talk to him. I've got grandparents, great-grandparents. I've got friends, dear friends of mine that have gone on. I'll get to see all the people that were assistant pastors of this church that have gone on. That's a little inside joke, but 'tis a dangerous thing to hold that position in this church. It's not that I killed them. They died. They just did. You know, I didn't have nothing to do with that. Honestly, I didn't. I've been investigated and I was cleared, okay? You know. Not really, lest anybody thinks that's true. But we all have somebody up there. It says just men made perfect. What does that mean? They were completed. They were made perfect after they got to heaven. You're not going to get perfect while you're down here. I don't care what you do. You will be perfect once you get up there. And people are always saying, oh, when I get up there, I'm going to ask God this, and I'm going to ask God. No, you won't. You already know. You won't have to ask anything. They are up there right now, and they are watching. And then finally, to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant. The new covenant. He's the one that made this all happen for each and every one of us. And he is there. And he said, because I live, you shall live also. And he said, don't worry about what's going on in this world. I have overcome the world. And so take encouragement, even though people are watching you, even though people are scrutinizing you and staring at you, you can walk the walk. You can talk the talk. You can do the things that God asked you to do. You can be the Bible that people are going to read this week, because just remember, the people that are rooting for you to win this race, they're up there cheering you on. How could you not be encouraged after knowing that? The people that you miss the most are watching you right now, and they're cheering for you. And let's finally remember another reason to be careful, because God is watching us and people are watching us rather. Why should we be careful when people are watching us? Because the Bible says finally, for our God is a consuming fire. He's holy, and not only does he ask you to do it, he demands that you do it. He demands that you live righteously in front of other people. He says you need to be a shining example. You need to be a candle that lights the way. Our God is a consuming fire. So while people are looking at us, while people are staring at us, run the race with patience. Shall we bow for prayer?